Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on KHOU 11 Plus. Great to have you with us. I'm Stephanie Simmons here with Ron Trevino, and we are officially in rodeo season.
And we're joined by someone who can definitely say this is not their first rodeo. Anthony Thomas, you are a real cowboy. So how long have you been a professional cowboy?
I've been rodeoing. This is my 20th year of rodeo, 15 years in professional rodeo.
Wow.
And how many times have you competed in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo?
I believe this will be my 8th time in my career.
So,
and your competition, you're on the bareback horse that's bronking, right?
Yeah, I ride bucking horses in the bareback riding competition.
for people who don't say it is their first rodeo and people who don't know it's different but similar to riding the bull. Can you break that down for us?
It is a rough stock event like bull riding. It's completely different than bull riding. We do ride out of the same buck and chutes. We do ride for the same time, 8 seconds, in order to get a qualified ride. But the animal athlete is a buck and horse instead of a buck and bull.
Okay. Wow. So and you don't have a saddle.
Don't have a saddle.
So you're just holding on for dear life. With what?
Yeah. So there's a suitcase style handle that we hold onto that we tie down to the horse's back, and we screw our hand in there tight, and your arm becomes an extension of the horse's back. And so if you get bucked off, which we don't get bucked off, but if you get bucked off, your hand stays in there and you get hurt really bad. So you have to make a successful ride and then be in the perfect position to get your hand out and jump off on the pickup man. Those other guys that ride in on the horses that you see come beside of us, we get our hand out and we jump off to safety on the pickup rider.
So if you feel like you're going to fall off the horse, you have to slip. The first thing you have to do is kind of slip your hand off that mold.
These animal athletes, they buck so hard and they're so good at their job. There are times when you get caught to where, like, the horse clicks your heels and you feel like you're going to go over the front, and in that time you've got to try to save yourself to get your hand out in the perfect position.
Wow. So what kind of injuries have you sustained through the years?
I've had 17 major surgeries.
17?
I had both my hips redone. I've had my elbow redone 3 times. I've had my face redone. My hand.
You picked a good face.
Your face was redone? What do you mean your face was redone?
I used to be good looking, so.
Oh my gosh. I think I need a redo. No, how did you hurt your
my hand came out of the bareback rigging mid-ride, and I bounced off the horse's back, and he kicked me in the face with both of his back feet and shattered my face in 28 places. So I had to have a full orbital reconstruction and jaw and cheek reconstruction.
Wow. So after you have major surgeries like that, that's terrifying. If I was your mother, I would tell you never again, but you're an adult, so we can't tell you what to do. But where's the line after a surgery like that, and then plenty more, where you say, I'm gonna go back and do this again? We know this is your last year retiring. We're gonna talk about your plans for after, but you came back.
Yeah, I mean, the rodeo is a passion. We love to do it. It's our lifestyle. It's something that we grow up dreaming about doing, and of course, to get to this level of competition, you have to be extremely determined, and you don't let injuries set you back. Up until this, just a couple years ago, this has been my income, my way of life, and so you don't ride, you don't get a chance to win. You don't get a chance to win, you don't get paid. So we ride through lots of injuries, and it's just a part of it. We accept it, and it's inevitable that you're going to get hurt in the bareback riding. It's just if you train hard and you train correctly and you strengthen your muscles and your tendons, you don't get hurt as much, except for like in freak accidents.
I mean, you're doing what you love.
Doing what I love every day.
But I do think with all the injuries and things, I'm thinking like that Willie Nelson song, Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Well, I'm trying to raise my babies to be cowboys.
Yes.
So yeah, you've got a daughter, you said?
I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who loves horses. She's obviously not going to ride bucking horses, but she will be raised on a horse's back. So.
That's why.
But okay, so there are some competitions for women, and then mutton busting, of course, for the little kids. So maybe your little one will get involved in that. But what if she came to you one day and said, "Dad, I'd like to join the rodeo in some of the women's competitions"?
Yeah, so the women do breakaway roping and barrel racing. I'm not going to force that on her, but I'm definitely going to raise her around a horse, because horses are special to me and special to my heart. Horses saved my life, And so I absolutely want to raise my family around horses.
Well, let's talk about your background, okay? So you're from Australia.
From Australia.
And you were a troubled child. You ran away from home, and then what happened?
I ended up at an all-boys boarding school, kind of a last chance school in the middle of nowhere. There was kids there that lived too far from town to go to a regular school, kids whose parents owned cattle stations, which is like a huge cattle ranch in this country. So they would live too far from town to go to a normal school, so they went to the boarding school that we went to. And then the other side of it was kids like me that grew up in the city that were had troubled childhoods. And so when I went there, I made an agreement with my parents that I was going to go there and finish my schooling out. I learned to be around horses and cattle and live on the land, and they taught us how to be ranchers and farmers and a horseman. And there I found friendship with some of the kids who came from cattle ranches, cattle stations. And instead of going home on weekends and on school holidays, I would go up to the cattle station to work. And so I decided to, instead of going home, I decided to go to the cattle station and start my life over there. And it was there that I was around wild horses and wild cattle, which molded me. It was a place where I felt, where I had a sense of purpose was around those wild cattle and wild horses. A lot of the time our job on the cattle station was to tame the wild horses to make work horses out of them. And the horses would buck and were dangerous, and I was pretty sticky and I didn't fall off very often. I had a close connection when starting those colts and breaking those colts, and made a friend with them very, very fast. I assumed my calling that I had from God to be with horses, and I kind of fell into rodeo after that.
We've seen in movies and different shows, the actors try to tame these wild horses. What's the percentage, would you say, of success rate of taming a wild horse, and what goes into that?
Yeah, so making a connection and establishing the horse's trust right out of the gate is the most important thing. Some of them like to buck and want to buck, and so how we have these animal athletes here today is, for 100 to 150 years ago, they found those horses in those riding strings that wanted to buck and liked to buck, and they bred them. The mother and the father, they'd find a male that liked to buck, and they bred it to a mother that liked to buck. And 5, 6, 7 generations later, we have these supreme animal athletes that have God-given talent to buck, and that's the ones that we ride at the rodeos. As far as riding horses, most of these horses, they're like dogs. They want to have a relationship with people. It's just how fast you can establish that friendship and that trust with them so that they'll give you 100%.
So how long does that take on average?
You can't put a timeline on a horse. Every horse is different. You generally break horses in at 2 to 3 years old, and you spend the first 60 days getting to know them, teaching them what stop, turn left, turn right is, and how to be gentle and how to accept you.
Yeah, you got to be a horse whisperer,
Horseman.
Steph.
Well, the process is fascinating. I mean, earlier you said horses saved your life.
100%.
What do you mean exactly by that?
I had a really troubled childhood up until the age of 12. I lived in Perth in the city, in a rough neighborhood, and I had this calling from God. I didn't know what it was at the time because I was a troubled kid and I was from the city. I'd never even been around horses. I had this feeling from God that I needed to be with horses, and it wasn't until I went to the boarding school and I was actually able to be around those horses that my life started to begin, and I started to be able to assume my, at the time, identity as a horseman and as a cowboy. And so horses and rodeo saved my life, which of course came from God. But as I matured and got older in my faith, then I realized that, hey, God had a specific plan for me all along to be with the horse, to be in rodeo. And turnkey, 20-something years later, my childhood dreams come true, getting to live in Texas and rodeoing professionally.
Yeah, I would think if you want to be a horseman and a cowboy, you got to come to Texas.
Yeah, that was the dream.
And so you live here now. You live in the Houston area.
I live in the Houston area.
Tell us about that.
I came to compete in the Houston Rodeo several years ago, and I met a Houston girl at the rodeo, and then I got married, so now Houston's home.
Rodeo romance. Okay.
It does happen. It does happen. I can attest to that.
Better than the apps, I guess. Yeah. So tell us what makes the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo stand out from all the other ones across the world.
For me, it's my hometown rodeo, and it just so happens, we go to 100 rodeos a year all over the country and all over the world. And for me, it just so happens that my hometown rodeo is one of the biggest ones on tour. So every rodeo is unique and has its special feel. The Houston Rodeo is obviously in NRG Stadium, which is a big football field, and it has a different vibe than lots of the other rodeos. The prize money is good if you win. And it's just got a hometown feel for me. All my customers are here, my church family and friends are all here. My entire customer base is here, and so lots of people come to support and cheer me on when I'm riding in the Houston Rodeo, and it's just very special to me.
When do you get to ride? When will fans get to see you?
I am in Super Series 4, so March 13th, 14th, and 15th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week. And then hopefully in the finals the following week.
Well, we'll be watching. So tell us about your ranch that you have here.
So I'm a first-generation rancher. I actually don't have a ranch of my own. I lease land from family friends. Mm-hmm. I have a farm-to-table beef business. We live in Fulshire, and when I first came to this country, because of my childhood and the way that I was raised, we raised all of our own animals for butchering for food because we lived too far from town to go to the grocery store. And so growing up, raising my own beef and butchering my own beef, I have had the real deal all my life. And so when I came over here and I noticed there was something wrong with the beef you buy from the store, there's additives and chemicals, it didn't smell right, it didn't taste right, because I know what the real thing is. Mm-hmm. When COVID hit, I was competing at the Houston Rodeo. They shut the rodeo down before we got paid, and then they shut our whole pro rodeo tour down. So that's how I pay my bills and feed my family. Again, God gave me this idea to start this farm-to-table beef business because I've spent my whole life looking after cattle and raising beef, and then also butchering beef. Because of my circumstances, I had an idea to raise all natural Angus beef and bring it to people in the city and educate them on how is this the real deal, how should we be getting our meat, what does real meat look like, how does it taste, and where does it actually come from. And that's very different to what you buy from the stores. And it's just been wildly successful.
Mm-hmm. And what's that called?
Thomas Cattle and Catering is our company. So basically, we raise an Angus steer here locally in the Houston area. We slaughter and butcher and custom butcher the steer direct to the consumer, straight to the family freezer. We dry age and do all the custom butchering, and then you fill your freezer once a year for your family. Every time you go in the freezer, you know exactly what you're pulling out, where it comes from, and it's a supreme product.
It's so interesting when you get in the food business and then talking with someone like yourself who's from a different country, and then you're noticing like the additives and things like that in our 100%. Food. Yeah, that's just crazy to hear. So how do you bypass all of that? When you butcher, like what I'm asking is what's the time frame that you package it up and get it fresh to the person?
A lot longer than commercial beef that you buy from the store. Mm-hmm. It's a 4 to 6 week process for us from the butcher date, from the slaughter date.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
We dry age our beef, and so aging is an age-old tradition in how people used to prepare their animals and their beef before they consumed it. And in today's production agriculture, they don't age the beef at all that comes from the factories where you get your beef from.
The health
it's
and
whacked
the flavor.
And slapped into a piece of plastic, and then it comes from overseas, and then they bring it over here and they pump chemicals into it because to make it heavier and so that the shelf life is longer, red food dyes and other additives to make the volume bigger. Whereas when you come straight to a rancher like me, mm-hmm. we're taking a home-raised animal that's been raised with care, we take it to the processing plant, we do everything in-house, we age the beef for maximum tenderness and flavoring, and then we custom butcher the animals and vacuum seal it so that it goes straight to your freezer.
Fascinating process.
Let me ask you, because I like to eat steak. I like to eat beef.
You're from Texas, so.
I'm a Texas boy, 5th generation Texan.
There you go.
Thanks for asking. But what's your favorite cut of beef?
My favorite cut is the Denver steak.
The Denver steak. I don't know
Yeah.
if I've ever had a Denver.
Yeah, what part of the animal does that come from?
Comes from right by the shoulder, in between the chuck and the shoulder.
Oh, some shoulder meat, Ron. There you go.
Not some shoulder meat. So
Okay.
the thing about our business is we utilize the entire animal, and we try to cut all of the gourmet cuts that most people don't know about that are readily available on these animals. And so there's cuts like a flat iron and a hanger steak and a Delmonico steak and a Denver that are 4 of the most beautiful hidden gems found on the animal that most people don't have access to in a normal grocery store.
Good to know me, because normally I order a New York strip, which they're talking about renaming it the Texas strip now.
Yes,
There you go.
of course.
But anyway, that's interesting
So
stuff.
okay. So if people want to buy from you and order your products, so do they have to order 4 weeks out because of the aging process and how
Oh,
you care for
absolutely.
the meat?
They
Okay.
put down a butcher date. We have a butcher date once a month, and then the butcher dates could be 4 to 6 weeks out, and then it's a 4 to 6 week process so that we can prepare that animal in the best possible way for you for flavor and tenderness.
And
cool.
the actual process of butchering, it's a more humane process, because I've heard people before say
Oh, yeah,
that's
100%.
part of the issue with the flavor of the meat.
We're,
and
we're
the-
doing everything ethically. We're treating these animals ethically. We want them to be relaxed and in their natural state when we harvest them. Basically combating everything that the commercial food system is doing to Americans. This is the best way to feed your family. Beef is the most nutrient-dense protein on the planet when it's prepared properly and doesn't have any additives and chemicals in it. And of course, I'm very passionate about health and wellness, being a pro athlete for so long, and I believe in this product. The best salesman in anything you do, whether you believe in God or whether you are here to sell something, if you believe in the product, you'll always be good at selling it.
Yeah.
Now, you also believe in rodeos and life around horses and livestock.
Saved my life.
Yeah, and do you still have your foundation?
I do.
To
have
help kids.
I do. We have the AT Horsepower Foundation. I started during COVID. It is a foundation for misguided and troubled inner city kids to learn about the Western lifestyle through rodeo. So kids that were like me, that didn't have a hope and a prayer without a hand up, it's to help them learn that you don't have to have a stellar upbringing, you don't have to have an education to be able to have a viable and lifelong career doing something else that's out of the norm.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm passionate about, is giving back.
You are Mr. Rodeo. Now, real quick, before we see you next week in the actual competition, do you coach other athletes? Is that something you do now or you want to do as you go into retirement?
Yeah, so I'm a part of a few different rodeo schools that we have for kids that are coming up. And I also have a ministry within Pro Rodeo to help young athletes that find their way into the sport to learn about God and to learn about a better way of life as well, because without that portion of my life, I probably wouldn't be here today.
It's probably better that people learn early, because these kids, they don't have fear. They don't have fear of anything. You
Especially
get
rodeo
into it older.
cowboys.
Yeah,
don't have any fear.
and when you're younger, the bones are more flexible, right? So
That's
they won't
right.
break as easily.
Yeah, that's right.
Think
so
about it that way too.
Yes, no, if Ron would try to start now, does he have to like get stronger thighs? Like how does that,
Yes.
what do you need
I
to
wouldn't
do?
recommend it.
Put the old man in there. Let's do that. Oh my gosh.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say to the fans before you go into your final competition?
Yeah, just I'm grateful to be here, and I hope all of Houston can come out and support their local cowboy. This is a great event for Houston once a year. The rodeo's in town, and you've got a local athlete here, so let's go set it on fire at NRG and go win this thing.
Yeah.
Love that. Set it on fire. That's how we should end all of our shows now.
Yes,
Ron.
let's set everything on
I
fire, why
love
don't we?
that. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. We learned so much.
Yeah, thank you for
so
having me.
much,
All
Anthony
the
Thomas.
best,
Thank
Yes,
you so
Anthony
much.
Thomas.
Thank you.
Stay safe, okay, and
Always.
best of luck in your life after the rodeo.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thanks for
it.
joining us. Okay, and thank you at home for streaming us on KHOU 11+. I'm Ron Trevino. She's Steph Simmons most of the time.
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.